Maya Chun pressed her eye against the scope, her breathing steady and controlled. The morning mist clung to the Afghan mountains like a gray blanket, but her vision remained crystal clear. At 19, she was the youngest sniper in her unit, and some said the most deadly. What they didn't know was that every skill she possessed had been passed down from a legend. Her father, Colonel David Chun, had been known throughout military circles as Ghost Shot during his 25 years of service. He could hit targets at distances that seemed impossible in conditions that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. But David Chun was more than just a sniper. He was a teacher, a strategist, and a father who knew that the world his daughter would inherit might demand every skill he could pass on to her. Maya's training had begun when she was just 8 years old, not with weapons, but with patience. Her father would take her on long hikes through the mountains near their home in Colorado. They would sit for hours completely still, watching wildlife. A sniper's greatest weapon isn't the rifle, he would tell her. It's the ability to become invisible, to wait, and to strike at the perfect moment. By the time Maya was 12, she was hitting targets at 300 yards with a .22 rifle. Her father taught her to read wind patterns by watching how grass moved, how to calculate bullet drop by understanding physics rather than just memorizing charts. He showed her how to control her heartbeat, how to time her shots between heartbeats for maximum accuracy. The military will teach you to shoot, David had told his daughter during one of their training sessions. But I'm going to teach you to think like your target, to become one with your environment, and to never let emotion cloud your judgment. Maya's mother, Sarah, had initially worried about her husband turning their daughter into a soldier. But as she watched Maya grow into a confident, disciplined young woman, she understood. David wasn't creating a killer. He was preparing their daughter for a world where strength and skill might mean the difference between life and death. When Maya turned 18, she enlisted in the army against her parents' wishes. Not because they didn't support her decision, but because they knew the dangers she would face. David had seen too many good soldiers come home changed or not come home at all. But he also knew that his daughter had been born with the instincts of a warrior, and that she would serve whether he approved or not. Basic training was almost insulting to Maya. While other recruits struggled with marksmanship, she consistently scored perfect marks. Her drill sergeants initially thought she was showing off, until they realized that for Maya, hitting the center of a target at 200 yards was as natural as breathing. It was during advanced infantry training that Maya's true talents emerged. During a live-fire exercise, her unit came under simulated attack from enemy positions hidden in dense forest. While her fellow soldiers struggled to locate the threats, Maya had already identified and eliminated 3 targets before anyone else had fired a shot. Captain Rodriguez, the exercise commander, called Maya aside afterward. "What did you learn to shoot like that, soldier?" "My father taught me, sir," Maya replied simply. "Your father have a name?" "Colonel David Chun, sir. Retired." Rodriguez's expression changed immediately. Every military sniper knew the legend of Ghost Shot. "Well, I'll be damned. No wonder you shoot like that. Your father's a legend in sniper circles." Word spread quickly through the training facility. Maya Chun wasn't just another recruit with natural talent. She was the daughter of one of the most respected snipers in military history, and she had inherited more than just his name. Upon graduation, Maya was fast-tracked into sniper school at Fort Benning. The instructors there had heard about David Chin's daughter and were eager to see if the stories were true. What they discovered was a young woman whose skills went far beyond simple marksmanship. During one particularly challenging exercise, students were required to remain hidden in a designated area for 72 hours while instructors actively hunted for them. Most students were discovered within the first day. Maya remained hidden for the full 3 days, and when the exercise ended, she emerged from a position less than 50 feet from the command post. She had been so close to the instructors that she could have eliminated any of them at any time, yet remained completely undetected. "How?" asked Master Sergeant Williams, the chief instructor who prided himself on his ability to find hidden students. My father taught me that the best hiding spot isn't the most remote location, Maya explained. It's the place where no one expects you to be. You walked past me 17 times in 3 days. Each time, you were looking for someone trying to hide from you, not someone hiding in plain sight. The technique she described was classic David Chin strategy. During his service, Go Shot had become famous for taking positions that seemed impossible, shots that appeared to come from thin air. He had once eliminated a high-value target from a position inside the enemy's own perimeter, hidden among their supplies for 6 hours before taking the shot, and escaping undetected. Maya's final test at sniper school would prove whether she truly had inherited her father's legendary abilities. The target was a playing card positioned at 1,200 yards in strong crosswind conditions. The shot was considered nearly impossible, designed more to teach students about accepting limitations than achieving success. As Maya settled into position, she felt her father's presence with her. She could hear his voice in her mind, reminding her of the lessons learned during those long hours in the Colorado mountains. Don't fight the wind, he had taught her. Use it. Every natural force can be your ally if you understand how to work with it. Maya studied the wind patterns, watching how dust moved across the range, observing the way distant flags behaved at different elevations. She calculated not just the wind at her position, but the varying wind speeds and directions her bullet would encounter during its flight. Then she waited. For 23 minutes, Maya remained absolutely motionless, waiting for the perfect moment when all the variables would align. When that moment came, she squeezed the trigger with the same gentle pressure her father had taught her to use when she was 12 years old. The bullet flew true, striking the playing card dead center. The range fell silent as instructors confirmed the hit through spotting scopes. Master Sergeant Williams shook his head in amazement. 30 years I've been teaching snipers, he said. I've seen maybe 5 people make that shot, and they were all seasoned veterans with years of combat experience. You're 19 years old, and you just did it on your first attempt. Maya's performance at sniper school earned her immediate deployment to Afghanistan, where her unit was tasked with providing overwatch for convoy operations along some of the most dangerous roads in the country. It was here that Maya would face her first real test, where the skills her father had taught her would be measured not against paper targets, but against enemies who could shoot back. The convoy protection mission seemed routine at first. Maya's spotter, Sergeant Mike Torres, was a veteran of 3 deployments who had worked with some of the best snipers in the Army. Initially skeptical of being paired with such a young soldier, Torres quickly learned that Maya's reputation was well-deserved. Kid's got eyes like a hawk and nerves like ice, Torres reported to their commanding officer after their first week together. I've never seen anything like it. She spots movement I can't even see with binoculars, and when she takes a shot, the target goes down. Every time. Their sector was a stretch of mountain highway where insurgents regularly attacked supply convoys using improvised explosive devices and small arms fire from concealed positions. Previous sniper teams had provided adequate protection, but Maya's abilities allowed for a level of precision and range that completely changed the tactical situation. During their 3rd week of operations, Maya detected suspicious activity near a known ambush site. Through her scope, she observed 3 men placing what appeared to be an IED along the convoy route. The distance was nearly 800 yards, with strong crosswinds and heat shimmer making the shot extremely difficult. Target acquired, Maya whispered into her radio. 3 insurgents placing device en route. Request permission to engage. Negative, Sniper 1, came the response from the convoy commander. Range is too extreme. Maintain observation and call in air support. Maya knew that by the time air support arrived, the IED would be in place and the insurgents would be gone. The next convoy would drive directly into the trap, and soldiers would die. She thought of her father's words about making difficult decisions under pressure. Sir, I have a clean shot. I can neutralize the threat now. There was a long pause before the convoy commander responded. Sniper 1, you are cleared to engage. Make it count. Maya's first shot dropped the insurgent placing the device. Her second shot eliminated the lookout before he could warn others. The third insurgent attempted to flee, but Maya's bullet found him at nearly 900 yards as he ran across open ground. 3 confirmed kills, Torres reported, his voice filled with respect. Threat neutralized. The convoy passed through safely, and the IED was recovered and disarmed by explosive ordnance disposal teams. But Maya's performance that day had caught the attention of higher-ranking officers who were always looking for exceptional talent. Within a month, Maya received new orders. She was being transferred to a classified unit conducting special operations against high-value targets. Her skills, combined with her father's training, had marked her for missions that few soldiers ever saw. As Maya prepared for her new assignment, she called her father to tell him about the transfer. David Chun listened quietly as his daughter described her recent experiences and her new orders. "I'm proud of you, Maya," he said finally. "But remember what I taught you about staying alive in dangerous situations. Your greatest weapon isn't your rifle or your training. It's your ability to think clearly under pressure and never let pride override good judgment." "I remember, Dad. Every lesson you taught me." "Good. Because where you're going, those lessons might be the only things standing between you and a body bag. Trust your instincts, trust your training, and come home safe." Maya packed her gear, including a small photo of her father in his dress uniform that she always carried for luck. She had no idea that her next mission would test every skill her legendary father had taught her, or that she would soon face a situation where the survival of her entire unit would depend on her ability to do the impossible. The morning she received her briefing for Operation Silent Thunder, Maya understood that everything in her life had been preparing her for this moment. The target was an enemy command center hidden deep in hostile territory, protected by sophisticated defenses and guarded by some of the most dangerous fighters in the region. Her mission was simple to understand, but nearly impossible to execute. She would have to infiltrate enemy territory alone, locate and destroy a heavily defended position, and escape without being captured or killed. It was the kind of mission that her father might have been assigned during his career, the kind that created legends or filled graves. As Maya studied the intelligence photos and mission parameters, she could almost hear her father's voice reminding her that every impossible shot was just a series of smaller, manageable challenges. The enemy base might seem impregnable, but it was still just a collection of buildings defended by men who could be outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and eliminated by someone with the right skills and the courage to use them. The transport helicopter that would carry Maya to her insertion point was scheduled to depart at sunset. She had 6 hours to finalize her equipment, memorize every detail of the mission plan, and prepare mentally for what could be the most dangerous assignment of her young career. Maya cleaned and checked her rifle one final time, the same precision weapon that had served her so well during training and combat operations. But she knew that success would depend on more than just marksmanship. She would need every lesson her father had taught her about patience, stealth, and tactical thinking. As the sun began to set over the military base, Maya made her way to the helicopter pad where her ride to destiny was waiting. She thought about her father's training, about the countless hours they had spent together in the mountains, learning skills that had seemed like games at the time, but now revealed themselves as preparation for exactly this moment. The rotors began spinning as Maya climbed aboard, her equipment secured, and her mind focused on the mission ahead. In less than an hour, she would be alone in enemy territory with nothing but her training, her weapons, and the knowledge that somewhere back home, her legendary father was waiting for her to come home safely. The helicopter flew low through mountain valleys, using terrain to mask its approach from enemy radar. Maya sat quietly in the cargo bay, reviewing her mission parameters one final time. Intelligence reports indicated the enemy command center was built into a mountain cave system, with multiple entry points and overlapping fields of fire that made direct assault nearly impossible. Captain Morrison, the mission commander, leaned over to speak above the helicopter noise. "Remember, Chun, this is a reconnaissance and harassment mission. You're not expected to destroy the entire facility. Just gather intelligence and cause enough damage to disrupt their operations. Maya nodded, but privately she disagreed. Her father had taught her that half measures in dangerous situations often led to complete failure. If she was going to risk her life infiltrating this position, she intended to make it count. Insertion point coming up, the pilot announced. 2 minutes out. Maya checked her equipment one final time. Her rifle was broken down and secured in a specialized case designed to protect it during the parachute landing. Her secondary weapons, ammunition, and survival gear were distributed across her body to maintain balance during the jump. Most importantly, she carried her father's compass, a gift he had given her before deployment, with an inscription that read, "True north isn't a direction. It's a principle." The helicopter slowed and began hovering over a small clearing surrounded by dense forest. Maya moved to the door, checked her parachute connections, and prepared for the jump that would begin the most dangerous mission of her life. "Good luck, soldier," Captain Morrison said. "Remember, extraction is in 72 hours at grid reference 447. Don't be late." Maya saluted and stepped out into the darkness. The parachute deployed smoothly, and she guided her descent toward the tree using techniques her father had taught her during civilian skydiving trips in Colorado. Within minutes, she was on the ground, her parachute concealed, and her equipment ready for the long trek to the target area. The enemy command center was located 12 miles from her landing zone, through terrain that intelligence described as extremely hazardous. Maya would have to navigate mountain paths while avoiding enemy patrols, automated sensors, and natural dangers like loose rock and sudden weather changes. Moving through the darkness, Maya felt completely in her element. Her father's training had included extensive work on night movement, teaching her to navigate by feel and sound rather than relying on vision. She could sense changes in terrain through her feet, detect obstacles by the way air moved around them, and identify potential threats by the subtle sounds they made. After 4 hours of careful movement, Maya reached her first observation point, a rocky outcrop that provided a clear view of the enemy facility. Through her spotting scope, she could see why conventional attacks had failed. The main entrance was protected by multiple machine gun positions. The approaches were covered by overlapping fields of fire, and motion sensors created an invisible barrier around the entire perimeter. But Maya's trained eye noticed something that previous reconnaissance might have missed. The facility's communications array was positioned on a separate peak, connected to the main complex by a narrow ridge path. If she could eliminate the communications first, the defenders would be unable to call for reinforcements when she struck the main facility. Maya spent 2 hours observing guard rotations and timing patterns. Her father had taught her that patience was a sniper's most valuable asset, and that rushing into action was the fastest way to get killed. She noted that the communications position was guarded by only 2 sentries, and they followed a predictable patrol pattern that left the equipment unguarded for approximately 90 seconds every 20 minutes. Moving closer to the communications site required crossing open ground that was partially illuminated by floodlights. Maya remembered her father's lessons about using shadows and natural camouflage to become invisible. She covered her equipment with local vegetation, darkened her face and hands with mud, and began the slow process of crossing the exposed area. The technique her father had taught her was called tactical patience. Instead of rushing across the open ground, Maya moved only when shadows provided cover, advancing just a few feet at a time, then remaining motionless until the next opportunity. The crossing took nearly an hour, but she reached the base of the communications tower without being detected. Maya assembled her rifle using muscle memory developed through thousands of practice sessions. Her father had insisted that she be able to assemble and disassemble her weapon in complete darkness, and now that training proved its value. Within minutes, her rifle was ready, and she had identified firing positions for both sentries. The timing had to be perfect. Maya waited for the next patrol rotation, then took her first shot just as the guards reached the farthest point from the communications equipment. The suppressed rifle made only a soft whisper, and the first guard dropped silently. Her second shot eliminated the remaining sentry before he could react to his partner's death. Maya quickly moved to the communications array and began placing explosive charges on key components. Her father had taught her basic demolitions during their training sessions, explaining that a sniper might need to destroy equipment as well as eliminate personnel. The charges were small, but precisely placed to cause maximum damage to the facility's ability to communicate with the outside world. As she worked, Maya heard voices coming from the main facility below. The sentry's radio check was overdue, and someone was becoming suspicious. She had perhaps 10 minutes before the communications position would be investigated. Maya finished placing the charges and activated their timers for a 30-minute delay. This would give her time to reach the main facility and begin her assault before the explosions alerted the entire garrison. She quickly moved down the ridge path toward the main complex, using the same stealth techniques that had gotten her past the outer perimeter. The main facility entrance was exactly as intelligence had described. Multiple defensive positions created overlapping fields of fire, and approaching directly would be suicide. But Maya had studied the facility layout and identified a potential weakness. The defenders were positioned to repel attacks from the valley below, not from above. Maya began climbing the cliff face above the main entrance, using rock climbing skills her father had taught her during their mountain training sessions. The climb was dangerous in darkness, but it offered the only approach that wouldn't be covered by defensive fire. Her father had always said that the most dangerous path was sometimes the safest, because enemies rarely expected attacks from impossible directions. Reaching the top of the cliff, Maya found herself directly above the main entrance, with a clear view of the defensive positions below. Through her scope, she could see guards at their posts, unaware that death was observing them from above. Maya counted 12 visible defenders, plus an unknown number inside the facility itself. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When facing superior numbers, don't try to fight them all at once. Eliminate them systematically, starting with the most dangerous and working toward the least threatening. Maya identified the machine gun positions as her primary threats. These weapons could cut down anyone attempting to approach the facility, but they were also positioned to provide mutual support. Eliminating one position would alert the others, giving them time to respond. The solution required precision timing that few snipers could achieve. Maya would have to eliminate both machine gun positions simultaneously, using a technique her father had demonstrated during their training. She positioned herself so that both targets were visible, calculated the exact timing needed, and prepared to take 2 shots in rapid succession. The first shot eliminated the machine gunner on the left position. Before his body had time to fall, Maya had already shifted her aim and fired the second shot, dropping the gunner on the right. Both weapons were silenced before their crews could return fire or sound an alarm. Maya quickly shifted position and began eliminating the remaining sentries one by one. Her suppressed rifle allowed her to work silently, and her elevated position meant that each shot was taken from an angle the defenders couldn't anticipate. Within 5 minutes, the external defenses had been neutralized, but Maya knew the real challenge was just beginning. The facility itself was built into the mountain, with narrow corridors and defensive positions that would force her to fight at close range. Her rifle would be less useful in the confined spaces, and she would have to rely on her secondary weapons and the tactical skills her father had taught her. As Maya prepared to enter the facility, the communications array exploded right on schedule. The destruction of their communications equipment sent the remaining defenders into chaos. Without radio contact with the outside world, they couldn't call for reinforcements or coordinate their defense effectively. Maya used the confusion caused by the explosion to slip into the facility through a ventilation shaft she had identified from intelligence photos. The shaft led directly into the command center, bypassing most of the defensive positions that would have made a direct assault impossible. Emerging from the ventilation system, Maya found herself in a large cave that had been converted into a sophisticated command center. Computer equipment lined the walls, maps and charts covered planning tables, and a dozen enemy soldiers were frantically trying to understand what was happening outside. Maya's father had taught her that in close-quarters combat, speed and aggression were more important than precision. She emerged from cover with her pistol drawn, moving constantly to avoid becoming a stationary target. Her first shots eliminated the two soldiers closest to the weapon's rack, preventing them from accessing heavier firepower. The remaining soldiers dove for cover behind tables and equipment, but Maya had already memorized the room layout during her brief observation period. She knew exactly where each person was hiding and the best angles to engage them. Moving with the fluid precision her father had drilled into her, Maya systematically cleared the room. One soldier attempted to flee through a side passage, but Maya anticipated his movement and intercepted him before he could escape. Another tried to use a computer terminal for cover, not realizing that Maya could see his position reflected in a monitor screen. Within minutes, the command center was secured. Maya quickly began downloading files from the computer systems, using equipment provided for the mission. The intelligence value of this material would far exceed anything her commanders had expected from a harassment mission. She also photographed maps and documents that couldn't be downloaded electronically. But as Maya worked, she heard sound from deeper in the facility that indicated more enemy soldiers were approaching. Her assault had been successful so far, but she was now trapped inside the facility with limited ammunition and no easy escape route. Her father's training had covered exactly this type of situation. When you're outnumbered and trapped, he had told her, don't think about fighting your way out. Think about making the enemy come to you on your terms. Maya quickly set up defensive positions using the furniture and equipment in the command center. She also began placing her remaining explosive charges on key pieces of equipment, preparing to destroy everything of value if she couldn't hold her position. The first group of enemy soldiers approached cautiously through the main corridor. Maya could hear their voices as they coordinated their assault, but they were making the mistake of assuming she was just another soldier with standard training. When the soldiers rushed into the command center, Maya was ready for them. Using techniques her father had taught her for fighting in confined spaces, she used the room's layout to force them into a bottleneck where they couldn't use their numerical advantage effectively. Maya's defensive position allowed her to engage the enemy soldiers one or two at a time as they entered the room. Her accurate fire and superior positioning quickly turned what should have been an overwhelming assault into a series of individual engagements that played to her strengths. But Maya knew she couldn't hold this position indefinitely. More soldiers would be coming, and eventually her ammunition would run out. She needed an escape plan that would allow her to complete the mission and reach her extraction point alive. As she fought off another assault, Maya spotted something that changed everything. One of the maps on the wall showed a tunnel system that connected the command center to a natural cave that opened onto the mountainside. Intelligence hadn't known about this tunnel, but it might provide the escape route she needed. Maya activated the timers on her explosive charges and began fighting her way toward the tunnel entrance. The remaining enemy soldiers were becoming more aggressive, but they were also becoming more careless in their desire to stop her before she could escape. Using the last of her ammunition, Maya cleared a path to the tunnel entrance and disappeared into the darkness just as her charges began detonating. The explosions destroyed the command center and everything in it, eliminating years of enemy intelligence work and strategic planning. Maya moved through the tunnel system, guided only by the small flashlight attached to her gear. The explosions behind her had caused structural damage, and she could hear rocks falling as sections of the facility collapsed. Her father had taught her to always have multiple escape routes planned, but this tunnel hadn't appeared on any intelligence maps. The tunnel wound deeper into the mountain than Maya had expected. After 20 minutes of careful movement, she began to worry that she was moving away from the surface rather than toward an exit. The air was getting thinner, and the temperature was dropping steadily. If this tunnel didn't lead to an exit, she could find herself trapped underground with no way to reach her extraction point. Maya's flashlight began to dim, indicating low battery power. She had backup lighting, but conserving power was essential in case she became lost in the tunnel system. She reduced the light to its minimum setting and continued forward, using her father's techniques for navigating in near-total darkness. After another 15 minutes, Maya felt a slight air current moving through the tunnel. Fresh air meant an opening to the outside, and she followed the current toward what she hoped would be freedom. The tunnel began to slope upward, confirming that she was moving toward the surface. Maya emerged from the tunnel into a small cave that opened onto a steep mountainside. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, and she could see the valley where her extraction point was located. But she was on the wrong side of the mountain, at least 8 miles from where she needed to be, with rugged terrain between her and safety. Looking back toward the enemy facility, Maya could see smoke rising from multiple locations. Her demolition work had been more successful than planned. The communications array was completely destroyed, and fires were burning throughout the main complex. Intelligence would later determine that the facility had been rendered completely inoperable. But Maya's mission wasn't complete until she reached the extraction point alive. The explosion and fires would attract attention from enemy forces throughout the region, and they would be searching for whoever was responsible. Maya needed to cover 8 miles of mountain terrain while avoiding search parties, helicopter patrols, and the natural dangers of traveling alone through hostile wilderness. Maya began her movement toward the extraction point using evasion techniques her father had taught her during survival training in Colorado. She stayed off established trails, used natural cover to break up her silhouette, and moved in short bounds between concealed positions. Progress was slow, but remaining undetected was more important than speed. After 2 hours of movement, Maya heard helicopter rotors in the distance. Enemy aircraft were beginning search patterns, looking for signs of the infiltrator who had destroyed their command center. Maya quickly found cover under a rock overhang and waited for the aircraft to pass. Through her binoculars, Maya could see that the helicopter was flying a systematic search pattern, with observers using binoculars to scan the terrain below. Her father had taught her that the best way to avoid aerial detection was to think like the people searching for you. They would be looking for movement, unusual colors, and geometric shapes that didn't belong in the natural environment. Maya remained motionless under her concealment for 30 minutes until the helicopter moved to another search area. When she resumed movement, she was even more careful to avoid creating any signs that could be spotted from above. She covered her tracks where possible and chose routes that provided maximum overhead concealment. The terrain became more challenging as Maya descended toward the valley. Loose rock made movement dangerous, and several times she had to rope down steep sections using equipment from her survival kit. Her father's rock climbing instruction proved invaluable as she navigated cliffs and narrow ledges that would have been impossible for someone without mountaineering experience. Midway through her journey, Maya encountered her first ground patrol. Through her binoculars, she observed 6 enemy soldiers moving along a ridge path that intersected her route to the extraction point. They were armed with automatic weapons and moved with the discipline of experienced fighters. Maya had 3 options: wait for the patrol to pass and risk missing her extraction window, attempt to circumvent them through even more dangerous terrain, or eliminate them to clear a path. Her father's training emphasized that violence should be a last resort, but sometimes the most dangerous choice was trying to avoid a fight. Maya chose a middle approach. She would shadow the patrol until she found an opportunity to slip past them without engaging. This required getting close enough to monitor their movement while remaining undetected, a technique her father called tactical stalking. Following the patrol from a distance, Maya quickly identified their destination. They were moving toward a checkpoint that controlled access to the valley where her extraction point was located. If they reached the checkpoint and alerted other forces, the entire area would be sealed off before she could reach safety. Maya realized she had to act. Using the terrain to her advantage, she moved ahead of the patrol and selected an ambush position where the trail passed through a narrow rocky gap. Her father had taught her that the key to successful ambush was patience and precise timing. She would have only one chance to eliminate all 6 soldiers before they could return fire or radio for help. Maya positioned herself above the trail, where she had clear shots at the entire killing zone. She checked her rifle and confirmed that she had sufficient ammunition for the engagement. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When you commit to a fight, fight to win. Half measures get you killed. The patrol approached the ambush site in single file, exactly as Maya had hoped. The lead soldier was carrying a radio, making him the priority target. The second soldier had a light machine gun that could provide devastating suppressive fire if he survived the initial engagement. Maya waited until all 6 soldiers were in the killing zone before taking her first shot. The suppressed rifle eliminated the radio operator instantly. Her second shot dropped the machine gunner before he could deploy his weapon. The remaining 4 soldiers dove for cover, but Maya had chosen her position to limit their concealment options. Moving quickly between firing positions, Maya engaged the remaining soldiers with precision shots that her father would have been proud of. The entire engagement lasted less than 2 minutes, and when it was over, the threat to her extraction had been eliminated. Maya quickly searched the bodies for useful intelligence and equipment. She found additional ammunition, a detailed map of the local area, and radio codes that might prove valuable to intelligence analysts. More importantly, she confirmed that the patrol hadn't had time to report their position or status before the engagement began. With the immediate threat eliminated, Maya resumed movement toward the extraction point. She had covered 6 miles and had 2 more to go, with less than 4 hours remaining before the extraction window opened. The terrain ahead was more open, offering less concealment, but allowing faster movement. Maya increased her pace while remaining alert for additional threats. Her father had taught her that success in dangerous situations often came down to balancing speed with security. Moving too slowly could result in missing the extraction, but moving too quickly could lead to detection and capture. As Maya approached the final ridge before the extraction point, she heard the sound of vehicle engines in the valley below. Through her binoculars, she could see enemy trucks moving along the road that led to her pickup zone. The search for the facility attacker was expanding, and forces were being deployed to secure potential escape routes. Maya counted 4 trucks carrying approximately 40 soldiers. They were establishing checkpoints along all the major routes out of the area. If they reached the extraction point before her helicopter arrived, her mission would end in capture or death. Maya had to reach the landing zone before the enemy forces could secure it, but she also had to avoid being detected during her approach. The solution required using a technique her father had taught her for moving through hostile areas: aggressive stealth. Instead of trying to sneak around the enemy forces, Maya would move directly toward them using speed and boldness to achieve surprise. She would time her final approach to coincide with the helicopter's arrival, using the aircraft's noise and the confusion of landing operations to mask her movement. Maya positioned herself on the ridge overlooking the landing zone and waited for her extraction aircraft. Through her scope, she could see enemy soldiers setting up positions around the perimeter. They were clearly expecting someone to attempt escape through this route. At exactly the scheduled time, Maya heard the familiar sound of helicopter rotors approaching from the east. The extraction aircraft was a heavily modified Black Hawk with additional armor and weapon systems. Maya watched as it began its approach to the landing zone, drawing immediate attention from the enemy forces below. Enemy soldiers began firing at the helicopter with small arms and machine guns. The aircraft's armor protected it from most of the fire, but the pilot was forced to take evasive action that would complicate the extraction. Maya realized that the helicopter crew was in serious danger and that her window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Maya made a decision that her father would have understood immediately. Instead of waiting for the enemy to be distracted by the helicopter, she would create her own distraction by engaging them directly. Using her elevated position, she began taking precision shots at the enemy soldiers, targeting the machine gun crews first. Maya's fire from an unexpected direction caused immediate confusion among the enemy forces. They had been focused on the helicopter and were unprepared for accurate sniper fire from the ridge. Within minutes, Maya had eliminated the most serious threats to the extraction aircraft. The helicopter pilot seized the opportunity created by Maya's supporting fire and brought the aircraft down in the landing zone. The crew chief was already manning the door gun, providing suppressive fire while Maya made her final approach to the aircraft. Maya bounded down the slope toward the helicopter, using fire and movement techniques her father had drilled into her during tactical training. She reached the aircraft just as enemy reinforcements arrived in the valley, bringing additional firepower to bear on the landing zone. "Go, go, go," Maya shouted as she dove into the helicopter. The pilot immediately lifted off, climbing rapidly to escape the increasing volume of ground fire. Maya could see muzzle flashes throughout the valley as enemy forces attempted to bring down the extraction aircraft. As the helicopter cleared the mountains and headed toward friendly territory, Maya finally allowed herself to relax. The mission had been more successful than anyone had expected. Not only had she gathered valuable intelligence, but she had completely destroyed the enemy command center and eliminated a significant number of their most experienced fighters. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the helicopter's intercom system. "Outstanding work, Chun. Intelligence estimates you set back enemy operations in this sector by at least 6 months. Your father would be proud." Maya smiled as she thought about calling her father to tell him about the mission. David Chun had taught his daughter that success in dangerous situations came from preparation, patience, and the courage to act decisively when action was required. Every lesson he had shared during their training sessions had proven its value during the most challenging mission of her career. But Maya also knew that her success had come at a cost. The enemy would adapt their security procedures and make future operations more difficult. They would also be actively hunting for the sniper who had caused such devastating damage to their operations. As the helicopter flew toward the debriefing facility, Maya began planning her next mission. The skills her legendary father had taught her were just beginning to be tested, and she suspected that even greater challenges lay ahead. 3 weeks after her successful mission, Maya received orders that would change everything. Intelligence analysts had decoded the files she recovered from the enemy command center, revealing a network of terrorist cells planning coordinated attacks on American forces throughout the region. More importantly, they had identified the location of the Supreme Commander who controlled the entire network. The target was known only as the Wolf, a former military officer who had become one of the most wanted terrorists in the world. Previous attempts to locate and eliminate him had failed because he constantly moved between safe houses and used elaborate security procedures. But the captured intelligence had revealed his pattern of movements and identified a window of opportunity. General Harrison, the task force commander, briefed Maya personally on the new mission. "This is the big one, Chun. The Wolf is responsible for killing hundreds of American soldiers and civilians. Your father knew about this guy during his service, and I'm betting he'd want to see this finished." Maya studied the intelligence package with growing understanding of the mission's complexity. The Wolf would be meeting with his regional commanders at a compound in the mountains, a gathering that represented the entire leadership structure of the terrorist network. Eliminating them all would cripple enemy operations for years. The compound is heavily fortified and surrounded by natural barriers, General Harrison continued. Intelligence estimates there are over 200 fighters protecting the site. Conventional assault would result in massive casualties and might allow key targets to escape. Maya realized why she had been selected for this mission. The compound's defenses were designed to repel large-scale attacks, not to stop a single sniper with exceptional skills. Her father's training in infiltration and precision shooting made her uniquely qualified for what others would consider an impossible assignment. "What's my support?" Maya asked, already knowing the answer would determine her chances of survival. You'll have a full reconnaissance team for insertion and extraction, a general replied. But once you're in position, you'll be operating alone. We can't risk having a larger force detected before you complete the mission. Maya spent the next week preparing for what could be her final assignment. She studied every detail of the compound layout, memorized the terrain features surrounding the target area, and developed multiple contingency plans for different scenarios. Her father's voice guided her preparation. The mission you survive is the mission you prepare for properly. The intelligence photos showed a compound built into a natural amphitheater of rock formations. The main buildings were positioned to provide mutual support, with overlapping fields of fire and multiple escape routes. Most challenging was the location of the meeting hall where the wolf and his commanders would gather. It was positioned at the center of the compound, protected by layers of security that would make approach nearly impossible. Maya's solution drew on every lesson her father had taught her about unconventional warfare. Instead of trying to fight through the compound's defenses, she would position herself outside the security perimeter and eliminate her targets through precision shooting at extreme range. The shot would be over 1,500 yards in challenging mountain conditions, but it was the only approach that offered any chance of success. The insertion was scheduled for the night before the terrorist meeting. Maya would be dropped by helicopter at a distance from the compound, then trek through mountain terrain to reach her shooting position. She would have one opportunity to complete the mission before enemy forces located and eliminated her position. Maya's equipment for this mission included her father's most treasured possession, a custom rifle he had used during his own special operations assignments. David Chun had given it to his daughter before her deployment, saying that it might bring her luck when she needed it most. The rifle had been modified for extreme long-range shooting, with a specialized scope and match-grade ammunition. The night of insertion, Maya sat quietly in the helicopter as it flew through mountain valleys toward the drop zone. She thought about her father's career, about the missions he had completed, and the enemies he had defeated using skills very similar to what she would need in the coming hours. 5 minutes out, the pilot announced. Maya checked her equipment one final time and prepared for the jump that would begin the most important mission of her career. Landing in darkness on rough terrain, Maya immediately concealed her parachute and began the long trek to her shooting position. She had identified a rocky outcrop that provided clear lines of sight to the compound while offering concealment from enemy patrols. Reaching it required climbing nearly vertical cliff faces in complete darkness, using rock climbing skills her father had taught her years earlier. The climb took 4 hours, but Maya reached her position just as dawn was breaking over the mountains. Through her scope, she could see the compound coming to life as guards changed shifts and preparations began for the important meeting. Maya settled into her shooting position and began the careful process of range estimation and environmental analysis that would determine the success or failure of her mission. The distance to the target building was 1,547 yards according to Maya's laser rangefinder. Wind conditions were variable with different speeds and directions at multiple elevations between her position and the target. Temperature and humidity would affect bullet trajectory, and the extreme range meant that even tiny errors in calculation would result in complete misses. Maya spent 2 hours observing conditions and calculating her firing solution. Her father had taught her that patience was a sniper's greatest weapon, and that rushing a difficult shot was the fastest way to fail. She recorded wind speeds at different elevations, tracked temperature changes as the sun rose, and identified the exact moment when conditions would be optimal for the shot. Through her scope, Maya watched as vehicles began arriving at the compound. Intelligence had been correct about the timing of the meeting. High-value targets were gathering in exactly the location that had been predicted, presenting an opportunity that might not come again for years. At exactly 1,000 hours, Maya observed her primary target entering the compound. The wolf was immediately recognizable from intelligence photos, a tall man with distinctive facial scars who moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute authority. He was surrounded by bodyguards, and moved quickly from his vehicle to the meeting hall. Maya adjusted her scope and confirmed her firing solution one final time. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When you have a clear shot at a legitimate target, take it. Hesitation kills more soldiers than enemy fire. The meeting hall had large windows that provided clear observation of the interior. Maya could see the wolf and his commanders gathering around a large table covered with maps and documents. They were discussing plans that would result in the deaths of American soldiers and innocent civilians if allowed to proceed. Maya controlled her breathing and waited for the perfect moment. The wolf needed to be in the exact center of her scope's crosshairs with optimal wind conditions and no obstructions between her position and the target. After 20 minutes of observation, that moment arrived. Maya's shot was perfect. The bullet traveled over 1,500 yards in less than 2 seconds, striking the wolf exactly as intended. The terrorist leader dropped instantly, his death sending immediate shock waves through his assembled commanders. But Maya's mission wasn't complete. Intelligence had emphasized that eliminating the regional commanders was equally important to disrupting the terrorist network. Maya quickly shifted to secondary targets, using the confusion caused by the wolf's death to eliminate 3 more high-value targets before enemy forces could respond. Maya's 4th shot triggered immediate response from compound security. Guards began searching for the source of the sniper fire, but her position was so far from the compound that they initially looked in completely wrong directions. Maya used their confusion to eliminate 2 more targets before the enemy began returning fire in her general direction. Enemy bullets began impacting the rocks around Maya's position, indicating that they had identified her approximate location. Her father had taught her that once a sniper position was compromised, the only option was immediate withdrawal to a secondary position. Maya quickly displaced, moving to an alternate firing position she had identified during her initial reconnaissance. From her new position, Maya could see enemy soldiers moving toward her original location. They were conducting a thorough search, but they were searching the wrong area. Maya's displacement had given her additional time to complete her mission before extraction became necessary. Maya resumed engaging targets in the compound, systematically eliminating the remaining terrorist commanders. Each shot required precise calculation due to the extreme range, but her father's training and equipment proved equal to the challenge. Within 15 minutes, she had eliminated 8 high-value targets, effectively decapitating the entire terrorist organization. As Maya prepared to withdraw, she noticed movement in the compound that indicated preparation for a major operation. Enemy forces were being organized for immediate deployment, probably to hunt down whoever had killed their leadership. Maya realized that her extraction could be compromised if these forces reached the extraction zone before her helicopter arrived. Maya made a decision that would have made her father proud. Instead of immediately withdrawing to safety, she would delay the enemy deployment by engaging their transportation assets. Using her remaining ammunition, Maya began targeting vehicles and fuel storage areas within the compound. Maya's shots ignited fuel tanks and disabled vehicles, creating chaos that prevented organized pursuit. The terrorist forces were now dealing with multiple crises simultaneously: the death of their entire leadership structure and the destruction of their operational capability. But Maya's extended engagement had revealed her position to enemy forces. She could see soldiers beginning to move up the mountain toward her location, and helicopter gunships were approaching to provide fire support for the ground assault. Maya's extraction window was rapidly closing. Maya began her withdrawal using evasion techniques her father had taught her for exactly this situation. She moved quickly but carefully, using terrain features to break line of sight with pursuing forces. Her knowledge of the mountain terrain, gained through careful study of intelligence photos and maps, allowed her to choose routes that would be difficult for pursuers to follow. The extraction helicopter arrived exactly on schedule, but the landing zone was under observation by enemy forces. Maya had to reach the aircraft while avoiding detection by searchers who were systematically checking every possible hiding place. Her father's training in tactical movement proved essential as she covered the final mile to safety. Maya reached the landing zone just as enemy forces appeared on surrounding ridges. The helicopter crew provided covering fire while Maya sprinted across open ground to reach the aircraft. Enemy bullets filled the air around the landing zone, but Maya's evasive movement and the crew's suppressive fire prevented her from being hit. As the helicopter climbed away from the mountain, Maya could see fires burning throughout the terrorist compound. The mission had been completely successful. The Wolf and his entire command structure had been eliminated, their operational capability had been destroyed, and their network would require years to rebuild. During the flight back to base, Maya finally allowed herself to think about what she had accomplished. Using skills her legendary father had taught her, she had eliminated one of America's most dangerous enemies and disrupted a terrorist network that had been responsible for countless deaths. General Harrison was waiting when the helicopter landed. "Outstanding work, Chun. Intelligence estimates you've prevented dozens of planned attacks and saved hundreds of American lives. Your father's training obviously prepared you well for this kind of mission." Maya thought about her father as she walked toward the debriefing facility. David Chun had taught his daughter that the skills of a sniper carried with them the responsibility to use those skills in defense of innocent people. Today, Maya had lived up to that responsibility in the most dramatic way possible. 3 days later, Maya called her father to tell him about the mission. David Chun listened quietly as his daughter described the successful elimination of the Wolf and the destruction of the terrorist network. "I'm proud of you, Maya," he said finally. "You've used your skills exactly as they were meant to be used, to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's what being a soldier is really about." Maya realized that her father's training had been about more than just marksmanship and tactics. He had been teaching her about duty, honor, and the proper use of deadly skills in a dangerous world. The mission against the Wolf had proven that those lessons had been learned well. Maya's success led to her promotion and assignment to an elite counterterrorism unit, where her unique skills would be used against the most dangerous enemies America faced. Her father's legacy lived on through his daughter's service, and the skills of the legendary ghost shot continued to protect innocent lives through Maya's expert marksmanship. Years later, when Maya had children of her own, she would begin teaching them the same lessons her father had taught her. The skills of patience, precision, and moral clarity that defined the Chun family tradition would continue to serve America's defenders in whatever challenges the future might bring. Maya Chun had proven herself worthy of her father's training and had earned her place among the elite warriors who stood guard over America's freedom. Armed with skills from her legendary sniper father, she had indeed destroyed the enemy base and emerged victorious against impossible odds.